You've heard the saying, they don't build them like they used to. And when you look at classic American muscle, you believe it. Those cars were made of steel. They felt tough, uncompromising. A 69 Charger, a 67 Mustang, they look like they could punch through a brick wall and barely feel it. There's a sense of strength, of substance. But what if that feeling is a complete and utter myth? What if the very things that made those cars legends, the solid steel dashboards, the acres of chrome, the sheer unyielding weight, were also what made them beautiful, rolling death traps? The journey of how muscle cars went from being some of the most dangerous vehicles on the road to the high-tech performance marvels we have today is one of the most dramatic and surprisingly untold stories in automotive history. This isn't just about adding a few seatbelts. This is a story of rebellion, regulation, and a technological revolution that completely rewrote the DNA of American muscle. And it all kicks off with a brutal, hard-to-watch reality check. Back in 2009, the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, IIHS, decided to celebrate its 50th anniversary with a bang, or rather, a crash. To show just how far car safety had come, they took a gorgeous 1959 Chevy Bel Air, a perfect symbol of that built-like-a-tank philosophy, and smashed it head-on into a 2009 Chevy Malibu. The result? It was horrifying. The classic Bel Air folded like cheap luggage. Its cabin completely collapsed, leaving absolutely no survivable space for the driver. The Malibu, on the other hand, held its shape, its crumple zone absorbing the impact, while its safety cage protected the dummy inside. The IIHS president said it best. It was night and day. That single test shattered the myth of old-school toughness. It proved that automakers don't build cars like they used to. They build them infinitely better. So how did we get from the mangled wreckage of that Bel Air to the safety cocoons we drive today? Let's dig in. 1. The Golden Age. Raw power, raw danger. To understand the safety revolution, you first have to understand what it was rebelling against. The 1960s, the undisputed golden age of the American muscle car. Gas was cheap, optimism was high, and a horsepower war was raging in Detroit. The formula was beautifully simple. Take a mid-size car, stuff the biggest V8 you could find under the hood, and give it a name that sounded fast just sitting still. GTO, Roadrunner, Super B. These things weren't just cars, they were cultural icons. Loud, fast, and drop-dead gorgeous. Designers were artists, sculpting long hoods and sweeping rooflines. Inside, it was all about style over, well, anything else. You'd find slick bench seats, a steering wheel the size of a ship's helm, and stunning painted metal dashboards with chrome-ringed gauges that made you feel like you were prepping for takeoff. But hiding under all that beauty was a terrifying secret. These cars were profoundly unsafe. Safety didn't sell cars back then. It wasn't even really a thought. The entire focus was on power and style, with almost zero attention paid to what happens when things go wrong. Let's do a quick then versus now comparison. Today, your car surrounds you with safety features. In a 60s muscle car, for starters, seatbelts weren't always standard. When they were included, they were usually just lap belts, which could do some serious internal damage in a crash. The three-point belts we all use today didn't become common until later, and even then, with no laws requiring you to wear them, most people just didn't. Headrests? Nope. A simple rear-end tap could mean a case of severe whiplash. And the steering column? In many of these cars, it was a single, rigid steel spear aimed directly at the driver's chest. In a head-on collision, that spear could be shoved straight back into the cabin. You can imagine the rest. That beautiful metal dashboard was just a slab of unforgiving steel. No airbags, no crumple zones. The thinking was that a heavier, more rigid car was a safer car, but what that really meant was that in a crash, the car wouldn't absorb the energy, you would. The car was a battering ram, and the people inside were just along for the violent, sudden stop. And that's before we even talk about controlling the thing. You had drum brakes on all four corners, which were notorious for fading when you needed them most. Forget about anti-lock brakes ABS, traction control, or stability control. You had hundreds of horsepower going to the rear wheels with only your right foot and your prayers to keep it all pointed in the right direction. It was pure, unassisted, and for anyone but a pro, incredibly dangerous. This was the dark side of the golden age. The cars were legends, sure, but they were legends with a body count, and the death toll on American roads was climbing. Something had to give. 2. The wake-up call, regulations and reality. The freewheeling party of the 1960s was about to hit a brick wall. The person who threw that brick wasn't an engineer from Detroit, but a lawyer and activist named Ralph Nader. His 1965 book, Unsafe at Any Speed, was a bombshell that torched the auto industry for prioritizing style over survival. The book struck a major nerve with the American public and, crucially, with politicians in Washington, D.C. The public outcry was deafening. People started seeing their beautiful cars less as symbols of freedom and more as potential coffins. Congress held hearings and found what it called disturbing evidence of the industry's neglect for safety. The pressure was on, and the government finally acted. In 1966, President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the National Traffic and Motor Vehicle Safety Act. This was a landmark law. For the very first time, the federal government had the power to set and enforce safety standards for every new car sold. It also created what would eventually become the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, a name that still makes automakers nervous today. Detroit was about to be dragged kicking and screaming into the era of safety. The first set of rules hit for the 1968 model year, and they were a direct attack on the hazardous designs of the Golden Age. So, what did this mean for your favorite muscle cars? First, interiors got a major, and not always pretty, makeover. Those gorgeous metal dashboards now had to be padded. Shiny chrome knobs were replaced with duller, recessed ones, and that driver-impaling steering column? Outlawed. In its place came the collapsible, energy-absorbing column, designed to crumple on impact. Seatbelts became mandatory, shoulder and lap belts up front, lap belts in the back. By 1969, front headrests were required to prevent whiplash. Side marker lights were added to make cars more visible at night. The very soul of the car's interior was being rewritten by federal law. And the feds weren't done. They also mandated crash tests. Cars now had to survive a 30 mm crash into a concrete barrier. This forced engineers to think about the car's structure in a whole new way, marking the beginning of the end for the built-like-a-tank philosophy. For muscle car fans, this was a mixed bag. On the one hand, cars were getting undeniably safer. The death rate on the roads, which had been climbing for years, began a steady, dramatic fall that would continue for decades. This law saved lives, period. On the other hand, the first attempts were clumsy. The sleek, cool interiors of the mid-60s were replaced with bulky, plastic-heavy designs. The raw, untamed spirit of the muscle car was being domesticated, and this was just the beginning. The biggest challenges and the ugliest designs were still to come. 3. The malaise era, safety's awkward adolescence. If the late 60s were a wake-up call, the 1970s were the brutal, day-long hangover. The auto industry was hit with a perfect storm of crises that brought the muscle car era to its knees. It was a devastating 1-2-3 punch. Punch 1, emissions. The new EPA and the Clean Air Act forced automakers to bolt on power-sapping equipment like catalytic converters. Engines were detuned and choked, and the mighty big blocks became shadows of their former selves. Punch 2, the 1973 oil crisis. Gas prices shot through the roof, and suddenly, a car that got 10 miles to the gallon seemed like a terrible idea. The public's hunger for horsepower was replaced by a desperate need for fuel economy. And Punch 3, the most visually obvious one for our story. Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standard 215. You probably know it as the 5 MF bumper rule. Pushed by insurance companies tired of paying for repairs from minor parking lot dings, this rule wasn't really about saving lives, but about saving property. The standard, fully phased in by 1974, demanded that a car withstand a 5 MAF hit to the front or back without any damage to its lights or other safety gear. In practice, this meant huge, ugly, heavy bumpers. The elegant chrome bumpers that were blended so perfectly into the designs of the 60s were gone. In their place, manufacturers grafted on enormous battering rams. Think of a gorgeous 1972 Corvette. Now picture a 74 Corvette with its clumsy, body-colored rubber nose that looks like a poorly fitted piece of Tupperware. It was a disaster. Exotic cars like the Lamborghini Countach had to have a giant black brick bolted to their nose just for the US market, completely ruining the car's iconic wedge shape. These bumpers added hundreds of pounds, further killing the already declining performance. A 1974 Dodge Charger looked bloated and tired next to its lean 69 ancestor. This period became known as the malaise era for a reason. The cars were slow, inefficient, and frankly, ugly. Safety had entered its awkward teenage years. The intentions were good, but the execution was awful. It felt like you could have a car that was safe, or a car that was fun to drive, but you couldn't have both. But even in this dark age, the seeds of a rebirth were being planted. The future wasn't in bigger bumpers, it was in smarter science. 4. The tech revolution. Crumple zones, airbags, and ABS. While the malaise era was all about clumsy, bolt-on fixes, a much smarter revolution was happening behind the scenes. This was about moving beyond just following the rules and into fundamentally rethinking the physics of a car crash. 3 key technologies would become the pillars of modern safety: crumple zones, airbags, and anti-lock brakes. Let's start with the one that sounds completely wrong: the crumple zone. The old built-like-a-tank idea makes you think that a car that doesn't bend is a car that protects you. Physics says the exact opposite. First pioneered by a Mercedes-Benz engineer way back in the 50s, the genius of the crumple zone is that it's designed to be destroyed. Think about dropping an egg. Drop it on concrete and it shatters. The concrete doesn't give, so all the energy goes straight into the egg. But drop it on a pillow? It's fine. The pillow crumples, absorbing the energy and slowing the impact. A car's crumple zone is the pillow. The front and rear are engineered to collapse in a controlled way, absorbing the crash energy and sacrificing the front of the car to protect the most important part: the rigid safety cage where you sit. So when you see a modern car completely mangled in a crash test, but the passenger area looks untouched, that's not a failure. That's the system working perfectly. Next up, the airbag. The idea of an inflatable cushion has been around since the 1950s, and GM even offered it on a few cars in the mid-70s, but the tech was clunky, and people were skeptical. The real breakthrough came with smart electronic crash sensors that could detect a collision and deploy the airbag in milliseconds, literally faster than you can blink. By the 1990s, airbags became standard, first for the driver, then the passenger. Today, a modern muscle car is packed with them. Front, side, curtain airbags for your head, even knee airbags. Combined with a seatbelt that keeps you in the right spot, this system creates a cocoon of safety that was pure science fiction in the 1960s. Finally, let's talk about avoiding the crash in the first place. That's where the anti-lock braking system, or ABS, comes in. In a panic stop without it, slamming the brakes locks up the wheels. Locked wheels don't steer, they just skid. ABS prevents this. It rapidly pulses the brakes on any wheel that's about to lock, allowing you to keep steering around an obstacle even while you're braking as hard as you can. ABS then became the foundation for even smarter tech, like electronic stability control, ESC, which can brake individual wheels to stop a skid before it starts, and traction control to prevent wheel spin. These systems are the invisible hand, helping to keep today's absurdly powerful muscle cars on the road. Together, crumple zones, airbags, and electronic aids are the holy trinity of modern car safety. The awkward adolescence of the 70s was over. Safety was finally growing up. 5. The modern marvel, today's muscle car, and all that brings us to today. The result of this long, painful journey is the modern muscle car, a machine that is, in every single way, a technological marvel. It is the ultimate proof that you can have your cake and eat it too. Look at a new Ford Mustang, Chevy Camaro, or Dodge Challenger. These cars have horsepower numbers that were pure fantasy in the 60s. A factory Challenger Hellcat makes over 700 horsepower. A Shelby GT 500 is a legitimate supercar. And yet these monsters are exponentially safer than their ancestors. Their crash test ratings tell the story. While they might not always get the absolute highest top safety pick awards like a family SUV, their performance is light years beyond the classics. The Mustang and Camaro generally earn good ratings across the board from the IIHS. Even the Dodge Challenger, which the IIHS has noted, can have some issues in specific tests, offers a level of protection and structural integrity that is simply in a different universe from its 1970s namesake. The fact that we can even analyze the risk of a leg injury shows how far we've come from the days of catastrophic cabin collapse. A modern muscle car driver is wrapped in a rigid safety cage made of high-strength steel, surrounded by a small army of airbags and held in place by advanced seatbelts. Their giant disc brakes, managed by sophisticated ABS and stability control, provide stopping power that a 60s driver couldn't even dream of. They prove that massive power and advanced safety are no longer enemies. They are partners in creating the ultimate driving machine. The story of muscle car safety is a journey from the raw, untamed power of the 60s, through the awkward, over-regulated hangover of the 70s, to the technological renaissance of today. The myth of the indestructible steel tank has been busted, replaced by the scientific reality of crumple zones and intelligent electronics. We've traded solid steel dashboards for explosive airbags, and in doing so, we've saved an incredible number of lives. Since 1960, the fatality rate per 100 million miles driven in the US has plummeted by nearly 80%, even as the number of cars on the road has skyrocketed. That single statistic is the ultimate legacy of this evolution. So while we'll always be nostalgic for the chrome-drenched icons of the golden age, we can all be thankful that when it comes to keeping us safe, they truly don't build them like they used to. So what do you think? Was there a specific safety feature that you think made the biggest difference? Or do you still prefer the raw, unfiltered experience of a classic, risks and all? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to get your take on the classic versus modern debate. And if you enjoyed this look at automotive history, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss what's next. Thanks for watching.